Things seem hard because we are soft.
Can't just be these helpless little babies that can't do anything.
We want to be doing things that are so insanely difficult that hard things that come along are like, no big deal.
We need to be more strategic as parents.
We need to be holistically tough so that we can handle whatever life throws at you. Hey there, this is Greg Denning. We want to reach as many people as possible and help as many families as possible with these conversations. And we want to keep this podcast ad-free forever. You can help us do that by subscribing on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, your favorite platform, and on YouTube. And leave a quick review and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. It makes a big difference. Thank you for being a part of this very important movement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We're your hosts, Greg and Rachel Denning. And today's topic, I think, is one of the most important topics in parenting, hands down, in family life and in life in general. And we are on in the the rhythms of history and civilizations, so the ups and downs, the oscillation, the waves. We are at the end of several decades of a very easy, affluent, comfortable life. And this happens throughout society all the time. You just watch the patterns of history. There's very, very hard times that make very, very tough people. And then those tough people, want their kids to have a better life. And then those ones want their kids to have it even better. And 3 or 4 generations in, somehow parents are raising kids on the easiest, most comfortable, most convenient lifestyle, and it just makes people weak and soft.
And squishy.
So you're several generations in. And so by that time, the people who went through really hard times and valued grit and toughness, and they brought perspective, right? Those are the great grandparents who are like, oh, in my day, we never
walked uphill both ways.
That's right. In snow while enemies were shooting at us, and they brought that perspective, but 3 or 4 generations later, they're like, oh, yeah, here we go again. Grandma and grandpa talking about how hard it was and how tough they were. And then we have this generation of just absolute weaklings. So it's important to know where we're at in the generational cycles, and that's where we're at.
Yeah. And some people call this, in fact, there's an entire book about it, the fourth turning. And it is essentially, it's a repeated cycle in history. Like we have 4 generations of turnings. 4 turnings. And in the 4th turning, that's generally when you find the quote unquote weakest, softest, squishiest people. And that is essentially where we are right now.
And that's why we end up in a massive crisis.
Yes, exactly. And what happens with the turnings is that there is a crisis that resets things. So we then move into the 1st turning where people are having more grit because they went through they went through the crisis. And so they have more grit and they have more resilience. And so today, really, because of some recent experiences you have had with coaching clients, working with teens, again, something you've been doing for
decades.
Yep. And you've been seeing it for decades, but you keep being reminded of it continually.
Wow. It just hit me. 30 years.
Wow.
30 years.
Yeah.
Because exactly 30 years ago, I was living in a horrible part of town and, around youth and kids that were struggling. And I would literally go down to the Boys and Girls Club and I'd help those other kids that were living in rough neighborhoods and had it even worse than me. And I was trying to how can I help? How can I give them some encouragement? 30 years now, I've been keeping a finger on the pulse, so to speak, of youth and children.
Right.
And these lives. And so, man, this stuff is so powerful and so important.
According to, obviously there's, in every generation, there are youth that struggle in the generation. It's not like, only specific to our generation per se. And some people say the 4th turning started around 2000, 2008, things like that. So, we've been in this 4th turning for 25-ish years or less. Some people expect that this turning will end in 2030. But because of that moving trend here, we're just seeing, especially with your finger on the pulse, this increase in what you call softness and squishiness, and kind of this inability to be able to handle and take on at this point, not even, if we think about our grandparents' generation, they were going to war.
Yeah.
They were fighting in World War I, World War II. I remember reading a letter from my 18-year-old grandfather about he was on a battleship when Japan was bombed and the war was ending. And I remember reading the letter that he wrote, and I was like, wow, this is really impressive. Like the grammar, the writing, the description, like everything was so mature for his age, I thought.
As an
As an
18-year-old.
18-year-old.
Wow.
And I was really, really impressed by that. It really struck me. And so,
Now, most 18-year-olds,
they can hardly
I wouldn't
text.
consider them to be literate. Like
Right.
they couldn't read a great book. They definitely couldn't
Yeah.
write a nice letter, and they
And
can
his
hardly
hand
text.
it was written in very nice, beautiful cursive. To me, it was this real contrast of the difference in the time period, right?
Wow.
For many of us, it's not our fault. It's just like we are the products of the time.
Right.
There's nothing we can really do about that per se. But it's important for us to remember that contrast and to remember where it is. And so,
Well, hold on. I want to clarify something. There's nothing we can do about the time we live in, is what you mean.
that's
But
what
there's
I mean. Yes.
100% something we can do about not just going along with
Right.
the tide of the times.
Well, yes. And in some ways, I guess what I also mean is we also, it's not like we cannot be a part of the tide. We're going to be
Right.
in the tide. We can't avoid that, but there's things we can do to be better off in that tide, if that
Absolutely.
makes sense.
Yep.
And so
go ahead.
So essentially, though, we're talking about soft and squishy, unprepared teens in today's world. When you think back to our grandparents, like they were doing things like going to war is what I'm trying to get at. And now today's
Well, and
teens
they'd come out
are
of the Great
having,
Depression. They'd experienced want, hard work, and then war. Like
Yes.
it was brutal.
and now today's teens are having a hard time getting a job.
Right.
Or
An easy job.
away to college or on a mission or going to do any, like we hear these stories that you think are far-fetched and out there, but they're more common. Like parents are going to apply with their children at job interviews and to go to college with their children and to meet with the advisors and to help them with their classes. Like it's gotten so bad that basic things have become so hard for teenagers to do and young adults that they literally cannot do them. They're having panic attacks. They're like having ongoing anxiety and depression. They cannot function in normal society. And this is in a society that is easier than it has ever been before in the world. I mean, they've got DoorDash and Uber Eats and everything is ease and comfort. And yet the suicide rates, the depression rates are off the charts.
Well, the figurative and literal collapsing.
Yes.
They're on the
Right.
floor in a heap.
And we're not
because of
making this
social-
stuff up. Like we want to emphasize.
Well, and nor are we
this is
throwing people
happening.
under the bus and like
That
condemning
too,
either. We're
that
not
too.
condemning. We're just pointing out. We're making observations so that we can all work at being better at it.
And
But
this is happening to lots of people.
Yeah,
This
very,
isn't
very
like a
common.
one-off
Right.
case. This is happening to lots and lots and lots of
So if
families.
it's happened in your family, which is likely it's happened in your family, you're not the only one.
Right,
So
you're not the only one.
You're not just like, oh, great, I failed. I'm such a loser. It's like, no, this is a generational thing. And
Right.
it's a societal thing. It's a
Societal.
massive problem. And so they're collapsing socially. They're just so terrified to have to go out and interact with people.
The statistics now about teenage boys and men dating is like non-existent. They're not
Dismal.
dating. They're not going out because it's so much easier and more comfortable to stay at home and text or just watch porn.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you don't have to go through, and that's even a small example of how this is working. You don't have to go through the discomfort of getting up the courage to get up, get dressed, present yourself, go out and talk to a real woman
And get rejected by
and
her.
get rejected.
Yeah.
Because that hurts. That's painful.
And
That's
it's so good
uncomfortable.
for you.
It's so good for you, and so few people.
Because they're terrified, literally terrified of rejection. We're
Which
terrified of,
men have always been terrified of rejection, but
Right.
beforehand there wasn't an alternative.
but they fear rejection now. Like earlier generations feared
Death.
an enemy army.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a whole battalion coming over the hill. We might die. And now our generation's like, I have to go talk to people. What if she says,
I have to leave the house.
and you're like, well, what are you so afraid of? I have this conversation all the time. Like, what is it? You're just crushed by anxiety and crippling fear and worry. What is it you're so afraid of? And you know what the answer usually is? The unknown. I don't know what to expect. I'm like, what's possibly, like, what's so terrifying? Like, what unknown? Well, I don't know what the food will be like. Are you kidding me? Like, what? And so we end up afraid or beat down by simple things, small things, insignificant things, because we, as a society, as a generation, are so underdeveloped. As I love to teach and often say, it's like things seem hard because we are soft. They feel really big, but only because we are really small. It literally, truly insignificant things, small things, pathetic things that previous generations or people in other societies would look at like, are you kidding me? That's stuff we do before breakfast in the morning. And it takes you months to have therapy to work up to it. Like, what is going on? And so it's a big, big problem that's holding people back.
And so while it is part of the tide of the turning and the generation, right? Like you already mentioned, there are things we can do within our families to help our own children develop more resilience and grit and strength. And again, this isn't, I never want to be misunderstood. We're not saying we have to go back to earlier times where people were just hard and hard-hearted and, had no sensitivity for feelings or emotions or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's this idea of the toxicity of that time where you have feelings and you feel bad about something, too bad, just get over it. And you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, yes, there's this emotional aspect of ourselves we should respect and respond to.
Absolutely.
And acknowledge.
have
And
feelings.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. But at the same time, we have to have resilience. We can't just be these helpless little babies that can't do anything because of our emotions and our fears.
So I can experience, and my children can experience a full spectrum of emotion.
Right.
And generally this is applied to men and boys, like, oh, you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to have feelings. It's like, no, a young man or a man can have a full spectrum of emotions and feelings. It's fantastic. But that doesn't mean I have to become hypersensitive and weak.
And
offended
unable
at
to
everything.
function.
Right, exactly.
Especially, right. So there's two books in particular I thought of was we talked about doing this. One of them is The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. And I've actually only started it. My daughter, who's 18, just has recently finished it. She really enjoyed it. And then, of course, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which you and I have both read. Fantastic, both of them. But
well, I also think about the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. We're actually reading that as a class for the Habits for a Successful Life class. It starts this week. Like, we're reading that together because it is so relevant and so important.
And that is actually the theme of your, I'm just remembering this, the theme of the course this semester is character and grit, building this resilience. But especially in the comfort crisis, he really goes through and makes this case that's completely valid. I think we can all acknowledge that, in our modern day life, like we've already talked about, kids don't face discomfort on a daily basis. Like, they don't feel cold. They don't feel hungry. They don't have to do anything that's really hard. They don't have to get out of their comfort zone. And that's, if you think about it, that's actually a very strange phenomena for the human condition. Like, in all of history.
The first time in history,
when has that occurred?
And I want to, this seems insignificant, but it's so relevant and so important. Like, where a young man or a young woman thinks 60 degrees is just freezing cold and 80 is extremely hot, and like won't be bothered by either of them. Like, how dare this happen? Like, I immediately need my air conditioning or my heater. And in fact, and again, we don't want to be misunderstood here. I love luxury.
Absolutely.
I love luxury. But when it becomes like we get entitled to it, we think, no, when I get to my car, I want the seat heated and the steering wheel too.
I love heated seats.
So do I. And heated seats, it's amazing. Now they're putting air conditioners in seats.
Right, of course.
So it's like not even your butt's going to get too hot. And again, I like luxury, fantastic. But if you can't handle hard things, something's off.
Well, because it simply does not create the necessary experiences for you to develop grit and resilience.
Right.
Like, that's the irony. You have to face difficult circumstances, even something as simple as not having the AC you want or the heat, in order to develop grit and resilience.
Well, beyond that, and
And
we'll get into
beyond
this.
that,
You need to be able to go spend weeks in the jungle helping and serving people. And it's just hotter than hell. And you just are grinding and into the freezing cold to get up in the mountains where it's down to the bone and you're genuinely concerned about frostbite. Like you've got to be able
that's
to
just
go,
so extreme, Greg.
but you
It's
have
just
to. You have to be
extreme.
able to go to those levels to be capable. And capable for what? To be able to handle what's coming. And I know some people right now might be arguing. It's like, well, why would we have to be capable to do that? Like, look around. Our lives are so good. They're so comfortable. We don't need grit anymore. Everything's taken care of. And pretty soon we'll have robots that'll do all the heavy lifting for us. Like, I won't even have to bring my groceries in anymore if there's a heavy watermelon.
They're doing robots in China where they'll now have babies. You don't even have to have a baby anymore because the robot can carry the baby for you. And then,
Oh my
yeah,
goodness. So now you don't have to go through
Right.
labor or delivery.
So uncomfortable.
Why do those things? And we're moving to this place, but there's going to be, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years,
according to the fourth turning.
and these big thinkers, there's another reset coming that's going to reset society, and there's a collapse, or they always call it a crisis. There's a crisis coming, and all it takes is the littlest blip. And then people lose their minds.
We were literally talking about this yesterday. We have some German friends that live here nearby in Portugal. And a few months ago, you and I went to Scotland to lead a couples trip, and we left our kids here.
Castle.
Yeah, we were staying at Castle, having a great time. And we find out while we're there that pretty much all of Spain, Portugal, and then some of France, maybe some of Italy, I don't know the full extent, lost power. All power in all of those, not all of the countries. Across three countries was gone. Yeah. Everything. Which then, of course, they lost cell service. So they had no Wi-Fi, they had no cell service, and they had no electricity. And this lasted for,
I think 3 days, maybe 2-3 days.
No, it wasn't that long. It was maybe like a day and a half. Okay. That happened. They said people were panicking a few months ago and acting crazy. And so our German friend, he was talking about it. He's like, he was already prepared. He had some stuff. He had some water storage, some food storage. He went to the grocery store and people were lining up at the grocery store just to buy water. And already we're starting to freak out.
And be very aggressive.
This was in one day. This just happened a few months ago. Okay.
Had that lasted 7 days?
Oh my gosh. It would be insane.
Yeah. So many elements of society would unravel.
Right. So this kind of stuff is already happening around the world. We just don't always hear about it. But I think even maybe not more importantly, but just as importantly, when you go out and do difficult things like the extreme things you're talking about, it gives you perspective so that you can do normal everyday things without being annoyed, irritated, anxious, or depressed.
Yeah. Like if I go run a marathon, a 5K is a piece of cake.
Right.
That's nothing.
Exactly.
Like you'd go out and run a 5K every day because you're like, I run a marathon. But if my life goal is to one day run a 5K,
your life's too easy.
Walking to the corner is like, man, this is so hard. I had to take the stairs because the elevator was busted. Like, this is horrible. My life's so terrible. It's like, what is going on? So it's not only perspective, but it's also capacity.
Right. So, and I was actually thinking about this morning because we do a morning breakfast and discussion with our family, our kids, and we do a question book. And the question this morning was, what difficult thing have you made or achieved or earned? Something like that. Like what is something you earned or achieved or worked hard to do? And it was kind of interesting because my kids were kind of like, it's like they couldn't think of something at first. But then I reminded my 18-year-old daughter, I'm like, well, what about summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, which she did when she was 17? And she's like, Oh yeah, that was hard. But she was trying to think of like everyday stuff, and
But
she has this
she's also
perspective that
trying to
this
define what's hard.
yeah, this everyday stuff is not that hard
Right.
because she has summited Mount Kilimanjaro. That was hard. So it was this perspective shift that is literally just a part of who she is now, where she's thinking, well, what everyday stuff have I done that's been really hard to do? I can't think of anything because it's not that hard. Because climbing Mount Kilimanjaro was hard.
Hey,
That's
okay.
the hard stuff.
This is such an important point that I want everyone listening to really grasp and understand, because this is what we want for our families as an ideal. That our families are consistently doing challenging things, but they don't think it's challenging.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yes.
We want to be doing hard things, and we want our kids to be like, what? What's the big deal? This is just normal. It's not that hard. That's what we want. We want to be occasionally doing things that are so insanely difficult that hard things that come along are like, what? No big deal. And what they'll notice is their peers collapse. Their peers is giving up, quitting. They can't do it. They can't handle it. And we want our children, and those of you listening, we say that collectively, we want to raise our kids in such a way that they're like, what? Wait, what's going on? Why are you guys stopping? This isn't that bad. This is nothing. But that only works if we've consistently and deliberately and purposely done really hard things, because therein lies, I think, and from my observation experience, the only way to earn that is to do it. The only way to become tough is to do hard things.
Which for us is one of the major reasons that we travel so much with our family. I'm sure a lot of people, they think, oh, you've been to 60 plus countries and you've done all this cool stuff. Wow. Life of luxury and ease and vacation. Well, no, that's actually not why we do it.
And it's easy to think, man, your kids must have it so easy because you guys, you're affluent and you have this dream life. Like your kids got it easy. No wonder they're not doing hard things. But we knew that was a risk. And so we purposely fit in really hard things.
Well, but the other thing that I think many people don't realize, because they think vacation all the time, is that when you do real travel, the way we do it, especially, it inevitably involves challenging things. Like it's just a part of it.
That happened on Monday. Kimball and I were in San Sebastian, Spain, and we met a bunch of other young adults there. And they were just like, well, man, your life is just like an endless vacation. Right? Because in this young woman's head, she's like, well, we have our regular life, and then when we go on vacation, like we take 2 weeks and we just wander and travel, and it's just vacation. It's just wonderful, great. And then we go back into our hard life to work. And she's like, your whole life is like a vacation. And Kimmel's like, no, it's not. Like, it's not, we're traveling all the time and having these epic experiences, but it's not like what you're talking about. It's not a couple of weeks at an all-inclusive resort, like doing all the touristy things. Like, that's not how we do life. We were literally talking through this.
How we're traveling. Right?
And in our journey, it's like we've built our life around integrating difficulty.
Through travel.
Well, through all kinds of things.
Yes,
travel is just one.
Travel is a part of that.
Tool.
Yeah.
It's one strategy we use.
And another example is our upcoming trip. Literally 1 week from today, we're flying to Switzerland and India on the way to Kathmandu, Nepal. And then we're going to be trekking as a family, including our 8 and 11-year-olds and our 15-year-old and our 18 and 20-year-old, for 2 weeks up to the base camp of Mount Everest. So, that's the type of travel we're doing. That is challenging. That is not a vacation. That is discomfort, cold, hunger, challenge, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Like, all of that is involved in this process. But that is the point. That is why we do it. Because that is what develops the grit, the resilience, and the strength.
In my mind, like, that's the perfect contrast to taking the kids to Disneyland or Disney
That is
World.
why we've never been to Disneyland.
Right. I'm never taking the kids there. You're like, oh, yay, family vacation, let's go to Disneyland. I'm like, what What for? For me, from my perspective, I'm like, what a waste
It
of
doesn't build
money.
resilience.
Right? There's no
Let's say that.
development
Although maybe, I
there.
mean, I've never been. Maybe there's resilience
And
needed. Just wait in
patience, like
line
waiting
for
in line. You learn
for the
patience or
rides. I
something.
don't
I don't know.
know.
I haven't experienced that.
Yep.
But the point is, we have to be deliberate about what we're doing as a family, day in and day out,
Mhm.
and then with the big stuff too. So
Right.
it's what I refer to as the micro dosing and the macro dosing. So the trip to Nepal is a macro
Yeah.
dose of doing hard things, but I mean, amazing things, extraordinary things, super cool stuff. Like we're going to enjoy it. It's incredible. And we're going to do things that scare us, terrify us,
Mm-hmm.
and things that push us and challenge us in every way and love it. Right. But then you can't just do that if
Right.
once a year. That doesn't cut
If we
it.
only did that, it'd be better than nothing, but
Yeah.
it's not enough to develop the kind of resilience we're talking about to be able to function in everyday life. And so that's why the dosing is so important. And that's things as simple as working out. Like that's one of the values I think I've learned for myself and for our children. You've known it much longer than me that just working out regularly is giving you that microdose of doing something uncomfortable you don't want to do necessarily that pushes you and challenges you and in the process builds grit and resilience.
Exactly. Daily,
I
5
mean,
days a week
5
on
days, yeah.
exercising.
Right.
But then, you're taking cold showers and working on projects that, outside where it's hot or
It's
cold
hot
or raining
outside.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Now, some of you listening, I know you're sitting here thinking, oh, my kids are tough. And some of you are raising your kids out on ranches or farms and your kids are
Fantastic.
working. That's amazing. And you got tough kids. Some of them have been doing martial arts since they could crawl and they're tough. And that's fantastic. And of course, our message here today is holistic, as it always is. We need mental, physical, spiritual, social, financial, all of it. We want grit, character, and toughness in all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So some might be, you can go out and put in a 16-hour day working your tail off physically, but you couldn't possibly have an uncomfortable conversation or something disturbs you mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. You just collapse because you can't handle it. No emotional development, no emotional resilience.
Well, or in the opposite of collapsing sometimes is that you just stuff it down and you go to work and you work hard and you avoid it
Yeah.
because that's another pattern that also is like we're talking about. It's avoiding the development that can occur to create that emotional resilience.
Exactly.
Because that's also just as important.
Yeah. Every bit of that is. Well, even the financial. So it's hard to emphasize this enough. We need to be holistically tough so that we can handle whatever life throws at you.
I think this becomes especially important in relationships because yeah, you might have kids that are tough and can work hard and can handle hard things, but if they still are unable to have that difficult conversation, that's going
Or
to
talk
play
to a
out
stranger.
with their spouse. So now they're married and they're like, well, our response to this was always to just go work hard instead of like have the difficult conversation and figure this out and move through it. That also becomes this limiting factor for a fully developed life because now you have this partnership that's underdeveloped because you can't work together to work through these issues.
So it's socially weak or mentally weak or
And-
emotionally weak.
And the reason to me that this matters so much is because family life is the backbone of society. And the stronger the families are, the healthier the families are, the healthier society is going to be. So if society is collapsing and failing in so many ways, well, in many ways, that's simply because families are doing that.
To break down a family and individuals.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so we have to recognize all of the different elements that are going into this because, yeah, even though you might be great at one area, the finances or the fitness or whatever, if the other areas are struggling, your family is not thriving in the way that it could be to strengthen each other and to strengthen society as a whole. So to me, that's why it's so important that we look at all of these aspects and we're continually working on all of these aspects so we can become that great force for good in the world that makes not only our own lives better, but society better.
Yeah, I love that. And so I can picture many of you who are listeners just thinking about yourself and your kids, and you might have a child that is socially super strong, can talk to anyone, anywhere, have great conversations. That's fantastic. But maybe that same child can't handle the mental stress of problems, the difficulty, setbacks, mistakes, failures, things not working out, and they just fall apart. Or maybe that child is really good, has a lot of emotional intelligence. It's wonderful. And maybe a lot of social intelligence and capacity, but couldn't put in, an hour of good, hard work. They just can't do it. And obviously, some might be arguing, well, not everybody has to be able to do all of that, to which I would say wrong.
Well, I
And
would
I get what,
say not everyone has to be able to do it at the same levels, but they need to be able to push their own personal boundaries.
well, yes, you're right. Let's throw out an ideal. An ideal is a well-rounded individual who's developing capabilities, not perfect, but growing, expanding, and developing capabilities holistically in all those areas. Because if we leave one aspect weak and we just justify it or rationalize it saying, well, I don't have to be strong in every area of life. And that's right. I don't have to be strong in everything. Well, all you're doing is saying, well, now I'm vulnerable, weak, and exposed in that area. And so if I don't have somebody there to save me, I'm toast. Well, that's not a good thing. That's not a good place to be in. And so if we're talking about ideals and we're trying to be well-rounded people and we're trying to raise well-rounded children, well, we want them to be well-rounded. We want strengths in all those areas, not perfection, not superpowers, but strengths so that they're not exposed and
so that you
weak.
can at least, let's say, carry your own weight in a way. Although I do want to add that I truly believe this is why we're meant to live in communities. I think the most
So we can
important
support each other.
community is a family community, so we can support each other in our different weaknesses. Like, I will never have the strength that you have, and I would never be able to protect myself the way you could protect me physically. So ultimately, yeah, I want to learn some skills to protect myself, but really I'm going to rely on you to protect me, and that's okay. But I also don't want to be a complete weakling baby.
Right. Or
Right.
completely vulnerable, because what if I'm not around and you need to defend yourself or defend the kids?
Right.
You have to
I have to have
some
some
skills.
knowledge, some skills
Yep.
about something I could do instead of doing nothing or curling
Right.
up in a ball of fear.
Right. Otherwise, because then the only time that you're well-rounded is when you're surrounded by people. And
Yeah.
that's, I mean,
That's
I
when we're
get
at our
that.
strongest, I would say.
Right.
And that's the
Yes.
ideal. Again, if we're talking about ideals, that's the ideal, is we surround ourselves with other family members and community members that are also working on strengthening themselves and becoming assets, so that we have each other to protect ourselves. And we're not just talking about physical protection from attacks. Like, yeah, that can happen, of course, but we're talking about the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, protecting ourselves from stress or overwhelm that occurs naturally from life,
Just the
of
chaos of
death,
life.
divorce, unexpected things that occur. Like, yeah, that's going to happen. And we want to be there to help each other. But it's like a chain. The stronger each link is, the stronger the chain is going to be. And so we want each link in the chain to be as strong as possible.
Man, if this isn't a promotion for big families,
Yeah, really.
think about
Build
it.
your own community.
Big, capable families. Like, so we have 7 children, and our kids are capable.
Mhm.
And so as you're talking about, it's
And
like,
they all have different
yes,
strengths too.
right. They all complement each other and support each other. I'm like, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
We have this great community that we're building, and then building a community of friends and neighbors that also have other strengths. Because, yeah, we're not going to be strong in everything. The skill set is going to be limited to what we really work on. And so I want to surround myself with friends and neighbors who have phenomenal skills and tools and capabilities that I don't have, and vice versa. I want to be able to bring things to their lives that are helpful. And one of the greatest challenges that we see right now is the lack of perspective as things as they really are, maybe we could say. And you referenced a moment ago, it's like, well, no, it's individual, it's personal, it's relative. Like, each person's working on their own little journey, which is true. But it's easy to let that get skewed and distorted where I hear moms say all the time, it's like, my kids are hard workers. They do chores all the time. And my thought was always like, man, if you think chores is hard work,
Well,
you got
if you're talking about like maybe sweeping the floor and loading the dishwasher and things like that,
right.
that's
They
not necessarily
clean the toilet,
hard.
they vacuum, they do chores all the time. Or, I know a lot of families are like, Saturdays are our work day. We spend the day working. We clean up the yard and clean up the house. Our kids are hard workers. Bro, if that's all your kids have
It's
ever
good.
done,
It's not a bad thing,
it's so good, but that's not hard
but
work.
it's not sufficient like we're talking
It's
about. There has
yeah,
to be more. That's a good part of maybe the microdosing,
right, exactly.
but there needs to be more to develop that true perspective. Like you need to do something so hard that they think, oh, the yard work's easy.
Yeah,
You
like
know what I mean?
working hard all day in your yard is nothing. And that's what we're talking about. I guess maybe that's kind of the visual for this whole conversation is we've got to regularly be doing things and we have to choose challenge. We live in such a time of affluence and comfort
Well,
and
like
convenience.
he says in the Comfort Crisis, he's like, today's teens are practically bubble wrapped. Like they
Yes, exactly. And everything delivered to them. And they think, oh man, one time I had to wait like 2 days for my
my
order to
Amazon
come.
delivered.
Like, no, you poor thing. 2 days?
I'm
Oh,
regularly reminding my children because we order stuff on Amazon, even here in Portugal. It comes from Spain, and they're like, "Oh, when is it going to get here?" For us, it generally takes 2 or 3 days or more for it to come. But I still remind them. I say, it used to be you had to get in the car, you had to drive to the store, you had to go around looking to find it, or you had to get like a mail order catalog. Like I'm trying to help them understand what it used to be like. The world was not always like this. And I want them to know that
yeah.
regularly.
It's so easy and so convenient. And yet now we want it to be even easier and
Yeah,
even more
right.
convenient.
And that's a danger.
And it's moving in that direction. And we might be thinking like life is that's the path of life in society right now with AI and technology and all these inventions. And they're wonderful. They're super cool. But if history repeats itself in any way, shape, or form, there's going to be a collapse of those things, at least for a time. Many people
Even a week long.
will
Many
die,
people will be suffering.
heart attacks, like health issues, just an absolute breakdown mentally, emotionally, and things can
'Cause they
fall
don't have their
apart so
internet.
quickly in just 3 days. In fact, the census is 3 meals. That's all it
Mm.
takes for a
Well,
regular good person to go without 3 meals, and all of a sudden they're not so regular or good anymore. And most people can't go without. They really, really struggle to miss a single meal.
one of
But
the
can you go days
things
without food?
One of the things Jordan Peterson, I've heard him say often, is that, for many people, their sanity is dependent on the systems of society that function as they
Absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
And that once you lose those systems, many people lose their sanity.
Yep.
And I think that that's very true.
And now, unfortunately, it's including all the medications being handed out like candy.
Yeah.
Like all these people, like so many, how many millions
At
and
least, especially
millions
in America
of
and the
people
Western
are
world,
right.
not so much in other countries per
They're
se.
literally surviving, and it's not even a survival. They're just drugged. They're medicated. And when that dries up, when that stops, when that goes away, it's like, what's going to happen? So we want, at least in our family, we want for me and Rachel ourselves to be capable and competent and tough, and for our kids to grow up that way so they can easily handle just the regular chaos and frustrations of life,
of
the
normal life.
problems that happen, but also be ready for incredibly difficult things that will come, that do come, whether it's a natural
Well,
disaster or a man-made
And
disaster.
in a very small way, because again, I don't feel like it was a huge disruption, even though I think it's a significant thing that occurred with the power outage in Portugal and Spain. Like that's a big deal that entire countries go out of power. That's kind of a big deal.
And then they never told us why.
They never told us why, what happened. That's also weird. But it was significant to me that we were in Scotland and our children were fine. They had no problem. They literally handled it amazingly. And, it
Like,
was not
even
an
a
issue for
hiccup.
them.
They just like, oh, sweet, let's roll with it. And
Yeah.
they came up with solutions right
And
away.
I don't want to discount this or downplay it in any way, but I honestly probably think they would have been fine for a week at least.
Easy,
I mean, I
easy.
would have been like, oh, should get back to our kids if we can, but which flights were canceled, like all that kind of stuff was canceled.
Let me expound on that a little bit. I say easy because I've gone with my kids and done such difficult things and
Yes.
solved problems. I know exactly what they do. I know how
Mhm.
Kimball and Aaliyah would think, especially in Atlas too. They'd go back into our camping gear. They'd have the cooking stoves out, and they'd be eating Mountain House meals and having a
They would. They'd
blast.
be loving it.
They'd string up the hammocks just for fun and
Right.
set up the tents, and they would be good to go. And we've got solar power stuff. We have chargers. We get lights. They
I
they
mean,
would know how
and
to
this
set it all
maybe
up.
sounds weird too, but we also have a farm here. And worst case scenario,
And they'd
Kimball
go out
would
and
be out
slaughter an
there like,
animal.
okay, we're slaughtering a pig
Yeah,
so we can
100%.
eat.
They'd
Like
go out and
they
do it.
would do that, and they would be able to do that.
Yeah, even our 14-year-old.
'Cause
I know how to do
we
it.
recently had an experience where 9 of our sheep or something, or 8 of our sheep were slaughtered by the neighbor's dogs, and our 14-year-old was the one that harvested them all.
Yep.
Okay, but I also want to bring up some points from the anxious generation because he talks about how in general, yeah, kids are in these bubble wrap, they're overprotected from real life struggles, but then they're also protected from virtual harm. And so our kids are living in this little bubble from the real world, but in the meanwhile, they're being exposed to social media, which is extremely damaging for
It's
young women,
poisonous.
and pornography, which is extremely damaging for men and women, and all of these other things on the internet
Yeah.
that are literally just damaging their psyche while they're also not being exposed to difficult
Yep.
things that
So
build resilience
they
and grit.
lack real life experience and they're being poisoned by virtual experience.
Yeah. So the social media and the video games and even the porn are replacing real world experiences, which often include trial and challenge as a part of the experience,
Yeah.
with these easy dopamine driven fake experiences.
And it's all virtual. This
It's all
may,
fake.
This may sound really weird, but hear me out. I think I'd rather have my son have a sexual experience with a real girl than with pornography.
Right.
Because it's real. It's
I
a
don't think that
human
sounds weird
being.
at all.
Yeah, because you're like, well, you have people like, no, okay, he looked at some porn, no big deal, and he masturbated. He didn't go out and have sex. I'm like, well, yeah, but one's like completely fake, and it screws up dopamine levels.
Right.
Well, here's why, you guys, and we've been talking about this a lot, but pornography screws up the dopamine levels so badly that true sexual experiences, which are super important for human beings, they get ruined.
Right.
And,
Because they're too vanilla, they're too
right.
boring.
It's not even good, normal, natural, beautiful, enjoyable anymore because the porn has completely distorted it and ruined it.
Yeah.
And so, if I had to choose between one of those, I would rather that my children have actual sexual experiences with a human being that they have feelings for than looking at a piece of glass on a phone or a computer or an iPad and then masturbating. It's like, that's not even real.
It's like, yeah, it's weird.
But
It's
social
fake.
media is not
Exactly.
real, and video games aren't real. It's like, it's this bizarre, really, truly bizarre time we live in where they're having these virtual experiences that are quite literally rewiring their brains in strange ways. And then they're incapable in real life experiences, but like have all these virtual experiences that don't amount to hardly anything in the real life.
Yeah, so they're experiencing life through the screen, but it doesn't include the real life aspect of the challenge, the trials, the sweat, the risk. It's like removing all of the things that actually develop you as a human being, and all you get left is the dopamine hit.
Maybe the perfect comparison is like something like Minecraft, where they can get in there and build entire empires.
Yeah, without
with
breaking
pushing
a
buttons,
sweat.
but they can't go outside and
Build a fort.
A fort. Yeah.
Right. And so then, of course, it's creating, they're comparing themselves with others. They have increased anxiety, depression, suicide, all of this. And in fact, Jonathan Haidt points it out in his book, is directly connected and caused by these things. It's not contributing. It's not correlated. It is causing anxiety, depression, and suicide.
Yeah. It's so sad.
It's a real problem.
Yeah.
So it leads to, of course, emotional immaturity. They can't handle criticism. They can't handle stress. They have no tolerance for discomfort, for work, for real life relationships, having to go out and be rejected, or any physical effort.
And they're so entitled, they think their life should never be that hard.
Right.
Like the littlest disappointment, and they're just like so put out. Like, I was never supposed to experience this level of difficulty in my
Right.
life. What are you talking about? This is life.
And then, of course, because of that, they're terrified to fail because they've never actually failed at
Right.
anything, because they've never actually done anything or tried anything.
So they're terrified to attempt.
Exactly. They're terrified of attempting.
And what do you have? It's a mentally, emotionally, socially crippled
Right.
person.
And so they're squishy because they've never been forged by difficulty.
Exactly. There's no strength there. Oh, man. And so I actually want to share a little experience I had recently. And I do this on purpose. I do it with myself. So I would never ask you or my children to do anything that I'm not willing to do way more of. And I even did it in a small way on this trip. I took a trip over the weekend. I flew into Poland. And I thought, I'm going to go stay at a kind of a dumpy hostel right downtown where I know it's like, that's where they're partying and, all these single travelers. It's not the people I would hang out with, and it's not the
It
places
was not
I
a
would
luxurious
stay.
experience.
In fact, Rachel and I stayed at the most luxurious hotel
In Warsaw.
just down the road. It was off the charts. Like, that was one of my favorite
3
memories.
years ago.
And I ran past. I went on a morning run that morning, ran past it, but it was just down the road in this little hostel. It was ridiculous. There was 10 bunks in this room, and a bunch of stinky men, and loud, coming in all hours of the night and drinking.
Mostly 5 a.m.
Yeah, like coming in at 3 a.m., 5, just talking and smashing things, leaving their crap everywhere. Like, and I don't have to tolerate that. I don't have to stay there. Like, we're in great money. I could have gone back and stayed at that nice hotel if I wanted to. But I chose to stay there. And I was consciously saying, no, I'm going to go in and have an experience. I need to stay in touch. And some of you might be laughing or giggling, like no big deal. But my point is, go and do things that are outside of your comfort zone, that choose to do things you don't have to do. It's one thing if like you have to stay at the cheapest place in town. It's another thing if you can stay at the best place in town, but you choose to stay at the cheapest. And then I was driving over and I thought, I'm just going to stay the night in my van. I'm just going to sleep in the van. And so I pulled over in a gas station and just slept there. I froze my butt off. And I was cramped and my legs were cramping. And it was, right? Not comfortable. And I could have just stopped at a nice hotel and had a beautiful dinner at a restaurant. And I think I took a big bite of a salami I'd bought and I went to bed. So what? But I did that on purpose. And we'll often go out and just like, hey, it's with what you have on, like maybe go sleep outside or just go without. Just pick a couple of things, say, this is all I'm going to eat for the next 28 or 48 hours. Whatever it is, just choose to do things that test your limits. Get in freezing cold water. Go sit in a sauna. This is crazy hot. Like, do these different things regularly that are testing your limits and reminding you it's okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, it's really good and important.
Well, one of the other things from your hostel experience that I thought of, though, was you mentioned how, you got up in the morning and they're now all asleep and it was like just stuff everywhere and like half-eaten burritos and like just a disaster.
Yeah.
And these were all people who are in their
late 20s, early 30s.
Early 30s. And I'm like, wow, it's almost like they're children, right? And that's the problem of our age. It's like people who are legally or technically adults and yet still have the emotional, mental, physical, social maturity of children, where we're at in society. And at least for me, and at least for the message we're sharing, is like, we have the responsibility to change that, to shift that tide so that we can contribute to the world in a positive way and help our children learn how to contribute in a positive way. And then the sauna thing you mentioned too. Lots of our children don't like the sauna because it's uncomfortable. And I've told them, I'm like, well, one of the benefits is just so you get used to being uncomfortable. Like, it's a good thing for you. And I've noticed, especially with our daughter, Aaliyah, the one who summited Kilimanjaro. So it's not like she doesn't know how to do hard things. She now will sit in the sauna because she's like, it's good for me, because she hates the heat. She would live in Norway and she would love it, right? She's like, it's good for me to sit in the sauna and be uncomfortable with the heat because I don't like it. And I think that that's so important because we've literally had people say to us, because we lead trips and people come on and they do different things. And when we have certain things we do to help people be uncomfortable, and we've had people say to us, well, I've done difficult things before. And that's their reason for not doing it. That doesn't work. You can't say, oh, I've done that before. I did that.
20
No.
years ago, one time, I did something challenging.
Resilience is about being able to continually do that, to regularly do it. That is the point.
Yeah, that's where we fail massively as parents. If we think, well, no, when I was in my 20s, I did hard things.
Yeah, now I don't need to.
That
does not lead an
is
example for our children.
crap.
Right.
Yeah, and it makes you weak. And so the kids follow. They're like, well,
Exactly.
shoot, my parents take it easy. I'm going to as well.
Exactly. So I think just to close, like, we just need to be more strategic as parents. And I think that that's definitely the approach you and I have taken. We have been very, very, very strategic about having these certain experiences as a regular part of our life, like the trip we have to Nepal coming up. And last year we went to Mongolia and rode horses, and again, it sounds fun and amazing, but it was actually very hard and challenging. You literally had like this raw butt. Our daughter, Aaliyah, she had her entire calf was rubbed raw. I broke my arm. Didn't actually, but it felt like I broke my arm from the strain. It was a very challenging real world. We had people falling off the horses. These were wild horses and it was hard. It was challenging. But having those regular experiences helps us to develop the resilience, the grit, to be exposed to the discomfort, to have to be cold, to have to be hot, to have to be uncomfortable riding in a Russian van for hours on bumpy roads. Like, all of that is so critical to developing more of this strength. But we also have to do the microdosing. We need to work out.
Yep.
We need to push ourselves. You need to get in cold water. You need to
just eat things you
not
don't
use
like
the
to
AC.
eat.
You need to, I don't know, like different things. You just have to intentionally do that.
And so you guys start wherever you can. I mean, obviously here we are talking about, going up to base camp at Everest, and I hope you plan some epic trips, and I hope you spend a lot of money on it and make sacrifices for your family, because what could be more important? You think I get some rant and rave here, but what could be more important than that, than raising your family? But start right now, and maybe you do a little sleep out in your backyard. But all you do is, okay, everybody, as you are, what you have on, just go lay in the grass for spending the night. That's tough.
Yes. Even if you took the sleeping bags out, it would still be challenging. I'm like, because here's something else I need to bring up. I need to mention this. And in fact, we did an entire podcast episode on this. The other key element to it that we haven't touched on yet is we cannot force our children to do these things.
You have to invite them and entice them.
You have to invite them, and you have to make it look attractive and like it's something they want to do because of the benefits, not necessarily because of the pain. They have to be invited, because if they are forced, they will literally do the opposite. They will resent it, they will hate you, and they will end up being weak and squishy just to spite you.
Yep.
Right?
They'll pursue even more luxury because they didn't choose it and
I'll try to
understand
link to the other episode in the show notes, because we did a whole episode about how to invite your children to do difficult things. Because that's a key part of this.
100. In fact, that's the only way it really works.
Exactly.
Ultimately,
it is.
You have to get the kids to buy in where they want to live like this.
Right.
And our kids do. And we've taken our older ones especially, and they've gone out and done such difficult, grueling things, and they do it with a smile. And we have fun. We actually have fun doing it. Like, that's, for me, that's kind of my personal, one of the aspects of my personal mission is to be able to do really, really hard things and have fun doing it. Can I be suffering physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually and socially still be like, this is great. Let's crack some jokes. Let's tell some stories. Let's have a great time. Even though my body is just dying, is hurting so bad. And yes, of course we can.
And in fact, you're really good at doing that.
And so are the kids now. Like, they're in, like, they're having a blast. And like, there's real true suffering going on when we're pushing limits so far, and they're smiling and laughing and having a good time. And the other people around them is like, what are you guys on? Like, how you do this? And you realize, no, the body can be in pain and the mind and spirit can be in joy and bliss. And so it's possible. And so we lead the way, set the example, and realize, man, we can have a ton of fun while becoming really tough. And that's the golden ticket to making sure our families are super capable. Okay. Love you guys. Have an absolutely fantastic week. Start planning and strategizing and implementing both micro doses and macro doses. Get some big challenging trips or events or races or competitions on your calendar in the next 12 months and start today to start doing smaller things with the kids and get them involved. I always invite I did this, we did this with our family. Like when the kids were little, I was doing workouts and stuff, and they would come out and do their little push-ups and their little sit-ups, and they would climb on me, and I would do more push-ups with them on my back or whatever. And they started doing their little squats and wall sits with me. And so even when they were small, they started doing it. And that's been happening now for 24 years. And even our little 8-year-old, she goes out in the gym with us, and she's cranking out push-ups, excellent form, and chin-ups. Like she's full on knocking out chin-ups. Like she's 8. This is amazing. But it starts with little things like that, and they follow suit. And I've had my clients do it, and then pretty soon the whole family's in there doing their little workouts. It's amazing. It's beautiful, and it starts building the culture, the dynamics, the family legacy that we want to create and live by. So love you guys. Reach upward.